Hi, William here again. Thank you for joining me and welcome back to my channel. Now, I was at Yandles shop a couple of weeks ago and on sale they had some of these Rockler wireless speaker kits. Now I thought it'd be kind of fun to integrate some technology with wood turning, so I got a couple. So what's in the box when you buy one of these things? What you get is basically three components. There is a speaker with a battery. There is a control unit with some connections and the USB connector and a USB cable. Now the only limitation I can see with this particular device is the length of the cables which sit between the control unit and the speaker. They're about 6 inches long, so I think it's going to be difficult to separate the two components by more than about 4 inches. As for the design, I have found an interesting piece of not so heavily spalted beech, which is about it's about 1 foot long by 5 inches square. I don't intend using all of this because it's actually got some shakes at the end of it, so I'm going to have to trim it down. But the concept I'm thinking about is basically a horn to represent maybe a gramophone horn or something like that, with the two components at either end. So the first task then is to get this piece mounted between centres, rough it out and see what the extent of the checking or the cracking is. I'm just taking a pause for a moment. As you may have noticed on the video, I've got a strange vibration on the lathe which I've yet to track down. I'm going to spend a few minutes doing that, something I've never encountered before. And maybe as a result of that or something different, I cannot seem to get a good cut using any of my spindle gouges, despite the fact that I've taken my favourite Sorby 1/2 inch and reprofiled it. The wood is much softer and punkier than I expected, but the spalting is much nicer inside than I thought it was going to be. There are a few legacy cracks still in the wood which I've had to feed in some very thin CA glue to help stabilise it. And at this stage I'm doubting whether I'll be able to get the horn to the thinness of about 1/4 inch that I was hoping to do. But nevertheless I'm going to persevere on and see what happens. Now, partly because of the drilling process and also because I left the piece on the lathe overnight in a warm workshop, the whole piece has moved during the night, so it has to be retrued. So, shaping the inside of the horn, I'm using my Simon Hope mini hollowing system. Now you can see the hole I drilled yesterday with the Forstner bit is also out of true, so I have to fix that. Now I'm going to use my Crown Cryo MIDI hollowing system with the scraper attachment on to true up the inside. Now I needed a way of sanding right to the base of this project, so I came up with the idea of using the Silverline drum sander kit attached to a Forstner extension bit with my electric drill. This 80 grain drum removed all the peaks and troughs before I went back to conventional sanding. Okay, a quick update. I'm very pleased with the way that the abrasive work has turned out. My improvised sanding technique did very well, and I've sanded it down to 240. Now it's become apparently obvious that I'm not going to be able to insert the speaker through the end of the horn like I wanted to. The plan B is to cut it here and then to rejoin the pieces after I've inserted the speaker, and the control unit can just sit in the base. Now, remembering this project is supposed to be a contrast of the old and the new, I didn't want the horn to look too new and shiny. So I thought about some legacy colours by applying some intrinsic colours and then rubbing most of it back. Having sanded the piece back to 400 grit and cleaned it with some methylated spirits or denatured alcohol, I first applied some intrinsic colour honey and then ruby over the top of it. Having achieved the effect that I was after, I then proceeded with 3 coats of pre-thinned sanding sealer, denibbing between each coat. I then went on to apply a Yorkshire Grit, followed by a Yorkshire Grit Microfine, and then finally Hampshire Sheen High Gloss using the hot air gun method. Now I need to part this off, so I'm going to use a rubber ball in the end of the horn to hold it steady. Now to fix the base to the horn, I'm going to make a box type joint, and to do this I'm using two different size parting tools. Now, because I changed the design of this project, there's not enough space in the base to accommodate both components. Lucky enough I have wood to play with, and I'm going to start off by drilling deeper with the Forstner bit. Okay, so after extending and finishing the base, a test fit of the components reveals that they fit quite well. Now, before I assemble this device, I need to make sure that it works, but before I can do that I have to charge it, and you do that by simply plugging it into any USB connection. Okay, the light on the Bluetooth receiver has turned blue, which means it's fully charged and we can now pair it with my iPad. Okay, I'm just going to read through these instructions and carry them out as we go along. Right, that's now discoverable. Press the power button on the back of the control unit. Right, until it flashes. It's flashing. Okay, so then there we should be able to go to my YouTube and play beginner's guides, like for example a beginner's guide to Mike Walt's little brother. Try and make it more of a tutorial from my perspective, so that the new turners out there can get an idea to start them off. Well, it works. Various projects, and it is only. I'll catch you later, Mike. Okay, just remains to assemble this project. So then the speaker should fit in here. Sit firmly in there. And this should try and mention as many options used. So I hope you enjoy it, and once again, Happy New Year to everybody. And well, that works a treat, and the volume is actually quite loud. Okay then, that just about wraps up this project. I must say I'm very happy with the outcome. I do love the bits of the legacy stain that's left behind after sanding it down. I think that adds some interesting character to it. Functionally, it's also very good. Two things I have to do before I will take the still photographs. That is to find a way to stop it rolling around on your desk or wherever, possibly a little stand or chamfering the base off in a little bit here, I don't know, possibly a little stand. Also to hide the join. I'll probably use a hot wire on this to just to blacken it. We'll see. Okay, thank you for joining me again this week, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, a couple of weeks ago I had the pleasure of attending another session with Mark Sanger, who again turned a piece of wet wood. Now, inspired by what he'd done afterwards, some colouring and some carving, I'm going to try and mimic what he did, but try to do the wet turning, the drying, the colouring and the carving all in one day. So, I hope to see you next week to see how I got on.